Though creationist arguments continue to circulate within their closed-off communities and forums and churches, the age of information has brought the full weight of science to bear on their pseudoscientific nonsense and erroneous logic. Because of this, there is now an ever-growing list of arguments that all but the most ignorant and zealous of creationists have been forced to acknowledge are phony. It's also led to the emergence of new arguments. Well, perhaps that's not entirely accurate. Creationism has no new arguments. The last new argument it had was irreducible complexity, which isn't an argument at all. It's just a way of taking the argument from incredulity, a logical fallacy, and couching it in scientific terminology. What the creationist movement develops are new tactics, new tropes, new semantic tricks to try and muddy the waters of evolution specifically, and science in general. One of the tactics I've run into recently is for some creationists to challenge the finger quotes evolutionist to present just one fact that proves evolution is true. To understand why this little trick is just more typical creationist dishonesty, allow me to draw an analogy. Imagine that a man is on trial. He's charged with raping and murdering a female coworker. The prosecutor has spent months meticulously building a case. He has fingerprints from the accused in the woman's home, even though the accused told investigators that he'd never set foot in her house. Likewise, his fingerprints are on the gun that was used to kill the woman. Investigators found gunpowder residue on the man's clothing and a spot of her blood on the collar of his jacket. Carpet fibers from her home were found on his shoes. A security camera from a convenience store across the street caught a picture of the license plate of the defendant's car parked outside the woman's home while the murder took place. Semen was found inside the woman's body that is a 100% positive DNA match with the accused, and finally an examination of the man's email accounts found a long series of increasingly obsessive and threatening emails toward the victim leading up to the day of her death. With a case that airtight, the prosecutor is not worried about an acquittal. But the defense attorney pulls a proverbial rabbit out of his hat when he scoffs at the case that the prosecution has made and challenges the prosecutor to present just one solitary piece of evidence linking his client to the murder. Caught off guard by such a brazen question, the prosecutor brings up the murder weapon which had the defendant's fingerprints on it. "Aha!" cries the defense counsel. "But just because the gun has his fingerprints on it, that doesn't mean he's the one who used it to kill her. You see, I asked him to provide just one piece of evidence to prove that my client was guilty, and he couldn't do it. There is no evidence that my client is guilty. The prosecution can't meet its burden of proof. I move for dismissal." And if the prosecutor then tries to interject with any of the other myriad pieces of evidence indicating the guilt of the accused, the defense attorney just says, "Oh, you had your chance," and talks over him. That's basically what this whole argument amounts to. Creationists are confident in asking for just one piece of evidence that proves evolution true, because any one piece of evidence can be dismissed or rationalized away. It also allows them to ignore the fact that the case for evolution is stronger than any one piece of evidence could ever be. Endogenous retroviruses, human chromosome number 2, atavisms, the convergent morphology of related life forms as you trace their ancestry backward along the evolutionary tree, the repeatedly observed instances of speciation, the multiple instances of definitely beneficial mutations in humans and other life forms, all meticulously documented in the peer-reviewed literature. All of these things and thousands more individual pieces of evidence from dozens of independent scientific fields, from paleontology to genetics to organic chemistry to evo-devo, all point in the same direction. A common ancestor for all life, or at the very least all eukaryotic life, which, through the natural process of mutation, natural selection, and several other related processes, which combined form the basic mechanism for evolution, branch off again and again, giving rise to new diversity as each new branch adapts in its own unique way to its own environmental niche. So remember that the next time some creationist asks for just one piece of evidence that proves that evolution is true. Tell them that you don't wish to show them one piece of evidence, but if they have some time and an internet connection or a library card, you'd be glad to show them several hundred. And, as always,